The United Earth Parliament had not been this full in 20 years. Every seat was taken. Representatives from every nation on Earth sat in the great circular chamber, their faces grim as Daniel Carter finished his report. "That is the situation," Daniel said. "The Council demands tribute, resources, technology, and human workers to serve on their worlds. We have 30 cycles, about 40 Earth days, to give our answer." The chamber exploded with noise. Representatives shouted questions, accusations, demands. Some called for immediate surrender. Others called for war. The speaker had to call for order 3 times before the noise died down. Prime Minister Hannah Wells stood. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes, but her voice carried across the entire chamber. "Let us be clear about what we are discussing," she said. "The Council is not asking us to join them. They are demanding that we become their servants. Our children would work in their mines. Our scientists would build their weapons. Our soldiers would fight their wars. And this would not be temporary. Ambassador Carter has shown us what happened to species that accepted these terms. They are still servants, hundreds of years later." She paused and looked around the room. "The question before us is simple. Do we value our freedom more than our safety? Are we willing to fight and perhaps die rather than kneel?" The debate lasted 6 hours. Some argued that humanity could not win against the Council's vast fleets. Others pointed out that surrender meant slow death anyway, just spread across generations. A few suggested negotiation, but Daniel explained that the Council did not negotiate with species they considered beneath them. In the end, the vote was called. It was unanimous. Every single representative voted the same way. Earth refused. Admiral Kate Morgan was waiting when Daniel arrived at the Defense Command Center. She led him through corridors filled with rushing officers, past rooms where technicians worked on equipment he did not recognize. "We've been preparing for something like this for decades," Kate said. "Ever since first contact, some of us wondered what would happen when the Council decided they wanted more from Earth than friendship. Preparing how?" Kate smiled grimly. "Nathan Cole and his intelligence division have been busy. Very busy." They entered a secure room where Nathan Cole waited. He was a thin man with sharp eyes and a permanent expression of knowing something you did not. Beside him stood Amy Brooks, Daniel's chief diplomatic advisor, who had been working on finding potential allies. "The Council thinks they are the only ones with spies," Nathan said. "They are wrong. We have been studying their technology for 30 years. Their shields, their weapons, their ships. And we have been developing counters." He activated a display that showed technical diagrams Daniel could not understand. "Their shields are powerful, but they rely on a specific frequency modulation. If you know the frequency, you can punch right through. Their weapons are designed to overwhelm through volume, not precision. Their ships are large and intimidating, but not very maneuverable." "You think we can fight them?" Daniel asked. "I think we can hurt them," Nathan said. "Badly. Whether we can win is another question." Amy stepped forward. "There is more. The Council controls its member species through fear, not loyalty. Many worlds hate them. I have made quiet contact with several through back channels. They cannot support us openly, but they are watching. If we can bloody the Council's nose, if we can show that resistance is possible, things might change." Kate nodded. "So here is what we are going to do. Daniel, you will return to the Council and deliver our refusal. Make it clear. Make it proud. Let the whole galaxy hear that humanity does not kneel. And when they come for us, then we fight, and we show them what humans are made of." 2 weeks later, Daniel stood once again in the Galactic Council chamber. Once again, thousands of eyes watched him. But this time, he was not nervous. This time, he knew exactly what he was going to say. High Arbiter Varath looked down at him from his floating platform. Ambassador Carter, you have returned with Earth's answer? I have. Then speak. Tell us how much tribute your species will provide. Daniel took a breath. The chamber was completely silent. Somewhere in the crowd, he knew Sithara was watching. He hoped she was right about the Council being soft. The people of Earth thanked the Galactic Council for their offer, Daniel said, his voice carrying through the enormous space. We have considered it carefully, and we have decided to respectfully decline. The silence stretched on. Daniel watched Vorth's face carefully. The old alien's expression did not change, as if he had not heard correctly. Decline? Vorth said finally, Earth will not pay tribute. We will not send our resources to fill your vaults. We will not give you our technology. And we will not send our people to serve as workers on your worlds. Daniel paused. We are not your servants. We are not your slaves. We are human beings, and we bow to no one. Vorth leaned forward. His 4 eyes were very bright now. You understand what you are saying. You are refusing the Galactic Council. Yes, this has never happened before. Then I suppose we are making history. Vorth stared at him for a long moment. Around the chamber, delegates whispered to each other. Some looked horrified. Others looked fascinated. And some, Daniel noticed, looked almost hopeful. You are fools, Vorth said quietly. Your species is young. Your fleet is small. You cannot possibly stand against the power of the Council. Perhaps not, Daniel said. But we would rather die on our feet than live on our knees. If you want what we will not give, you are welcome to come and take it. He turned and walked toward the exit. Behind him, he heard Vorth's voice boom across the chamber. Then you have made your choice, human. I declare your species enemies of galactic civilization. Executor Krelvax will bring you to heel. And when your worlds burn, you will remember this moment and wish you had chosen differently. Daniel did not look back. He kept walking out of the chamber, through the corridors, all the way to his ship. Only when he was aboard and the engines were firing did he allow himself to smile. Earth had refused. Now the whole galaxy would watch to see what happened next. Daniel Carter had seen many strange things since becoming Earth's ambassador to the galaxy. He had walked through stations made of living crystal. He had spoken with beings made of pure light. He had eaten dinner with creatures that had no mouths. But nothing had prepared him for this moment. The Galactic Council chamber was enormous. It could hold 10,000 beings, and today it was full. 12 ancient species sat in their designated sections, their representatives watching Daniel with eyes, sensors, and other organs he could not name. At the center of it all, on a platform that floated above everyone else, sat High Arbiter Vorth. Vorth was old. His species, the Kethari, could live for thousands of years, and Vorth had seen most of them. His gray skin hung loose on his tall frame. His 4 eyes, once bright gold, had faded to pale yellow. But there was nothing weak about his voice when he spoke. Human ambassador, Vorth said, and the chamber fell silent. You have been summoned to receive the terms of your species' integration into galactic civilization. Daniel kept his face calm. He had expected something like this. Humanity had only been part of the galactic community for 50 years, still newcomers by the standards of species that measured time and millennia. He had known that eventually, the Council would want something from Earth. I am honored to hear the Council's terms, Daniel said carefully. Vorth smiled. It was not a kind smile. The Galactic Council has maintained peace and order for 12,000 years. This is not achieved through kindness. It is achieved through contribution. Every species that exists within our space must pay tribute. Daniel felt his stomach drop, but he did not let it show. Tribute? Resources from your worlds. Technology developed by your scientists. And workers. Vorath leaned forward. Human workers to serve on council worlds, performing tasks assigned by member species. The chamber was completely silent. Daniel could hear his own heartbeat. "You want us to send our people to work for other species," Daniel said slowly. "As servants. As contributors to galactic civilization," Vorath corrected. "This is the natural order. The strong guide. The weak serve. Humanity is young and weak. You will serve until you prove yourselves worthy of more." Daniel took a slow breath. He had studied the Council's history. He knew that dozens of species had accepted these terms over thousands of years. Some had eventually risen to junior membership. Most had not. Most remained exactly what Vorath described: servants. "And if we refuse?" Daniel asked. The silence in the chamber changed. It became heavier, darker. Several alien delegates shifted in their seats. Some looked away. Others stared at Daniel as if he had lost his mind. Vorath's 4 eyes blinked, one pair after the other. "No species has ever refused." "That was not my question," Daniel said. "I asked what happens if we do." For a long moment, Vorath simply looked at him. Then the old alien made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You have courage, human. Foolish courage, but courage. I will grant you 30 cycles to consult with your government. I am confident you will make the correct choice." The dismissal was clear. Daniel bowed his head slightly and turned to leave. He could feel thousands of eyes on his back as he walked out of the chamber. He made it to the corridor outside before his legs started shaking. "Ambassador Carter." The voice was soft, almost a whisper. Daniel turned to find a being he recognized, Ambassador Sithara of the Venakai. She was shorter than him, with blue-green scales and large dark eyes that always seemed sad. Her species had been part of the Council for over 500 years. "Ambassador Sithara," Daniel said, "I did not expect to see you here. I wanted to speak with you privately." She looked around, checking that they were alone. "What you asked in there about refusing. You should know the truth." "What truth?" Sithara's voice dropped even lower. "My people accepted the tribute demands 500 years ago. We believed we had no choice. We believed the Council was too powerful to resist. And perhaps they were then. But do you know what we have become since that day?" Daniel waited. "Slaves," Sithara said. "Oh, they do not call us that. They call us contributors, partners. But my people work in Council mines. We clean Council stations. We fight in Council wars. We have no voice, no power, no future. We are exactly what we were 500 years ago, and we will be the same 500 years from now. Why are you telling me this?" "Because you asked a question no one asks." Sithara's dark eyes met his. "And because I want you to know something else. Something no one will tell you in that chamber." "What?" "The Council has not faced true resistance in over 2,000 years. They have grown lazy. They have grown arrogant. Their fleets are large, but their soldiers are soft. They expect surrender, because surrender is all they have ever known." She reached out and touched his arm with cool, scaled fingers. "If any species were to refuse, truly refuse, I do not know what would happen. No one does. Not even Vorath." She pulled back and glanced around again. "I have said too much. Forget we spoke. Sithara, wait." But she was already walking away, disappearing around a corner. Daniel stood alone in the corridor, his mind racing. For 50 years, humanity had been told that joining galactic civilization was the greatest achievement in their history. They had been told they were lucky to be allowed into this community of ancient, advanced species. They had been told to be grateful. No one had told them the price. Daniel pulled out his communication device and opened a secure channel to Earth. Admiral Kate Morgan's face appeared on the small screen. Her gray hair pulled back tight, her eyes sharp. "Ambassador," she said. "How did it go?" "We need to talk," Daniel said. "Right now. Get the Parliament together. That bad?" Daniel thought about Sithra's words. About slaves who called themselves contributors. About an empire that had not faced resistance in 2,000 years. "Maybe," he said slowly. "Or maybe it is an opportunity. I need to get home, Kate. Humanity has a decision to make." He ended the call and started walking toward the docking bay where his ship waited. Behind him, in the great chamber, the Galactic Council continued their business, completely confident that the humans would submit like everyone else. They had no idea what was coming. The Council fleet arrived 3 weeks later. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiance and watched the enemy ships appear on the main display. One by one, they dropped out of faster-than-light travel, forming up in perfect formation. 10 ships, 20, 50, 100. "Still counting," Lauren Webb said from her communication station. Her voice was steady, but Jake could see her hands shaking slightly. 200 now. 250. The final count was 307 warships. Each one was larger than anything in Earth's fleet. Each one had been designed to project the power of an empire that had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. Earth had 47 ships. Admiral Kate Morgan's voice came over the fleet channel. "All ships, this is Admiral Morgan. You all know the odds. You all know what we are fighting for. Today we show the galaxy what humans are made of. Take your positions." Jake guided the Defiance into formation near Saturn's rings. The debris field would provide cover and confuse enemy sensors. It was not much of an advantage, but they needed every edge they could get. "Captain," Lauren said, "I am picking up a transmission from the Council flagship. Executor Krelvax wants to speak with us. Put him through." The main display flickered, and an alien face appeared. Krelvax was a massive creature with thick gray skin and 6 small eyes arranged in a circle on his flat face. He wore elaborate armor that covered his chest and shoulders. "Humans," Krelvax said. His voice was deep and dismissive. "I am Executor Krelvax. I will give you one chance to surrender. Lay down your weapons, open your ships to boarding, and your deaths will be quick. Resist, and I will make your suffering legendary." Jake looked at the enemy fleet on his display. 300 ships against 47. Any reasonable person would surrender. Jake smiled. "Executor, my name is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earthship Defiance. I have a counteroffer. Turn your fleet around and go home. Tell your council that Earth is not worth the trouble. Because if you come any closer, we are going to make you regret it." Krelvax made a sound that might have been laughter. "Foolish little creatures. You will learn respect." The transmission ended. "All weapons ready," Jake ordered. "Let them come to us." The Council fleet advanced. They moved in perfect formation, confident in their overwhelming numbers. They had done this 100 times before. No species had ever truly resisted them. The first volley from the Council ships lit up the darkness of space. Massive energy beams reached toward Earth's fleet, enough firepower to destroy cities. "Now," Jake said quietly, Lauren activated the countermeasures that Nathan Cole's team had developed. Across the fleet, every human ship broadcast a signal on a very specific frequency. The Council's shields flickered and failed. Human weapons fired back. The effect was immediate and devastating. Council ships that had never faced effective resistance suddenly found their shields useless. Human missiles punched through hulls. Human energy weapons carved through armor. In the first 30 seconds of battle, 12 Council ships were destroyed. For a moment, the Council fleet stopped advancing. Jake could imagine the confusion on their bridges. This was not supposed to happen. Primitive species did not have weapons that worked. "Press the attack," Admiral Morgan ordered. Do not give them time to adapt. Earth's fleet surged forward, using the rings of Saturn as cover, darting between chunks of ice and rock. The Council ships were large and powerful, but they were also slow and clumsy. They had been built to intimidate, not to fight equals. Human pilots had been trained differently. They flew like maniacs, taking risks that no Council commander would ever approve. They dove into enemy formations, fired at point-blank range, and escaped through gaps that should have been too small. But numbers still mattered. For every Council ship that fell, Earth lost 2 or 3. The Defiance took hit after hit. Systems failed. Crew members died at their stations. Jake watched his ship die around him and kept fighting. "Captain," Lauren said, blood running down her face from a cut on her forehead. "Shields are gone. Engines at 20%. Weapons are failing." Jake looked at his display. The Council flagship was close, Krelvax commanding from the center of the remaining fleet. If that ship fell, the Council forces might break. He made his decision. "All hands, abandon ship," Jake ordered. "Get to the escape pods, now." "Captain, what are you doing?" "Something stupid?" Jake locked the controls to his station. "Go, Lauren." "That is an order." She hesitated for only a moment, then ran. Jake watched the crew evacuate on his display. When the last pod launched, he pointed the dying Defiance directly at Krelvax's flagship. "This is for Earth," he said quietly. The Defiance accelerated. Council weapons fire tore into the ship, but it did not matter anymore. Jake held the course steady, watching the flagship grow larger on his display dot at the last moment. He ran for the emergency pod near the bridge. He barely made it inside before the Defiance struck. The explosion was enormous. The Defiance, its remaining weapons, and its power core all detonated at once, directly against the flagship's hull. The massive Council ship broke apart, pieces spinning off into the void. Executor Krelvax survived, barely, ejecting in his own escape pod. But his ship was gone. His authority was gone. And his fleet, seeing their commander defeated, did something they had never done before. They retreated. 3 hours later, rescue ships found Jake's pod drifting among the debris. He was unconscious, badly injured, but alive. When he woke in the medical bay, Admiral Morgan was standing beside him. "You are either the bravest or the stupidest man I have ever met," she said. "Did it work?" "They are running, Jake. The whole galaxy is watching. Humanity just made the Council bleed for the first time in 2,000 years. Jake closed his eyes and smiled. The battle was not over. The war had just begun. But they had proven something today that no one could take away. Humanity would not go quietly. The Second Council fleet launched with 512 warships. It was the largest military force assembled in 300 years. Executor Krelvax commanded from a new flagship, even larger than the one he had lost. But the fleet that arrived at Earth's solar system was much smaller. It started with small things. Fuel shipments that never arrived. Navigation data that contained errors. Engine parts that failed at crucial moments. Across Council space, the network of resistance that Daniel Carter had built went to work. Then came the open rebellions. On the Venikai homeworld, Ambassador Sithara led thousands of her people in a march on the Council Governor's palace. On the Tarathi mining colonies, workers seized the facilities and declared independence. On a dozen other worlds, beings who had been silent for centuries finally raised their voices. By the time Krelvax reached Earth, he had lost nearly half his fleet to delays, mechanical failures, and the need to leave ships behind to deal with uprisings. 271 ships faced the human coalition. Admiral Kate Morgan stood on the command deck of the orbital station that served as her headquarters. Jake Morrison's resolve floated nearby, surrounded by the strangest fleet in galactic history. Human vessels flew alongside Venakai transports, Tarathi scouts, and ships from a dozen other species. They were not a unified force. They had not trained together. Many of them had been enemies just months ago, but they all shared one thing: a refusal to kneel. "All ships, this is Admiral Morgan," Kate said over the fleet channel. "Today we fight not just for Earth, but for every world that has suffered under Council rule. Today we prove that freedom is stronger than fear. All ships, engage." The battle that followed would be remembered for 1,000 years. Council ships, already weakened by their troubled journey, faced opponents who had nothing to lose. Human tactics had spread through the resistance network, and now Venakai pilots flew with the same reckless courage that had shocked the Council in the first battle. Tarathi vessels, small but fast, darted through enemy formations and struck at weak points dot and everywhere. The Council forces found their advantages slipping away. Their shields failed against human weapons. Their communications were jammed by Kelish specialists. Their formations broke as captains received conflicting orders from a command structure that no longer trusted itself. Kralvax watched his fleet crumble and felt something he had never felt before: despair. "Press the attack," he ordered. "All ships, focus fire on the human flagship." But his orders went unheard by many of his captains. Some were too busy fighting for their lives. Others had already surrendered. And a few, seeing which way the wind was blowing, had turned their weapons on their fellow Council ships. The Resolve took heavy damage, but kept fighting. Jake Morrison stood on his bridge, blood running from a wound on his head, and refused to back down. Around him, his crew fought with everything they had when Kralvax's flagship finally fell, torn apart by the combined fire of a dozen coalition vessels. The remaining Council ships stopped fighting. It was over. 3 days later, High Arbiter Vorath came to Earth. He came alone, in a small diplomatic vessel, requesting a meeting with humanity's leaders. Daniel Carter met him in a simple conference room with no guards and no ceremony. The ancient alien looked even older than before. His yellow eyes had faded further, and he moved slowly, as if carrying a great weight. "You have won," Vorath said simply. "The Council fleet is destroyed. Our member species are in open rebellion. The empire that has ruled this galaxy for 12,000 years is falling apart." "Is that why you came here?" Daniel asked. "To surrender?" "No." Vorath sat down heavily in a chair. "I came to ask you a question. In that chamber, when you refused our demands, I asked you if you understood what you were doing. Now I must ask a different question. How did you know you could win?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. "We did not know. We hoped. We believed. But we did not know." "Then why? Why risk everything? Why sacrifice so many lives for something so uncertain?" Daniel thought about the question carefully. He thought about the debates in Parliament. He thought about the soldiers who had died in battle. He thought about Sithara and all the others who had risen up across the galaxy. "Because some things are worth fighting for whether you can win or not," he said finally. "Humanity has learned this lesson many times in our history. We have fought against impossible odds before. Sometimes we lost. Sometimes we won. But we always fought. Because giving up means losing something more important than any battle. What is that? Ourselves. Our dignity. Our right to determine our own future." Daniel leaned forward. "Your council ruled through fear. You made every species believe that resistance was impossible. But fear is a weak foundation. The moment someone stands up and refuses to be afraid, the whole structure begins to crack." Vorath nodded slowly. "And now? What will you do with your victory? Will you become the new council? Will you demand tribute from those who once demanded it from you?" Daniel shook his head. "No, that is not who we are. We have already begun talks with the other species. There will be a new charter, A new agreement based on cooperation instead of domination. Every world will have a voice. Every species will be free. You are naive, Vareth said. You think you can change thousands of years of history with good intentions. Maybe we are naive, but I would rather try to build something better than accept something broken. Daniel stood up. You can be part of this, Vareth. You and your people. The Cathari can join the new coalition as equals, not as rulers. The ancient alien stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. 1 month later, representatives from 47 species gathered on Earth to sign the new Galactic Charter. Admiral Kate Morgan was there. Captain Jake Morrison was there, his arm finally healed. Ambassador Sithara was there, her scales bright with joy for the first time in her life. Daniel Carter stood before them all and spoke the words that would begin a new era. Today we declare that no species will be forced to serve another. Today we declare that freedom is the birthright of every being in this galaxy. Today we remember those who gave their lives so that this moment could happen. He paused and looked out at the crowd. And today we prove that when people refuse to kneel, even the mightiest empire cannot stand. That evening, Daniel, Kate, Jake, and Amy Brooks stood on a balcony watching Earth's sunset. The sky burned with orange and gold, and somewhere out among the stars, a new galaxy was being born. Think it will last? Jake asked. I do not know, Daniel said. But it is worth trying. It is worth fighting for. Kate nodded. That is all anyone can do. They stood together in silence, watching the light fade and the stars appear. Somewhere, out there, beings on 100 worlds were looking up at those same stars with hope instead of fear. Humanity had refused to kneel, and because of that, the whole galaxy was finally free. The news spread faster than the Council could stop it. On 100 worlds, beings of 100 different species watched the footage of the battle. They saw the mighty Council fleet, 300 ships strong, face a tiny human force. They saw Council vessels explode. They saw the flagship break apart. And they saw the survivors run. For thousands of years, the Council had seemed unstoppable. They had seemed eternal. Every species knew that resistance was impossible. Every species knew that submission was the only option. Now, they knew something different. Ambassador Sithara stood in a hidden room on her homeworld and watched the footage for the 10th time. Around her, other Venakai gathered in secret, their scales shifting colors with emotions they had not allowed themselves to feel in centuries. Hope, anger, determination. They did it, one of them whispered. The humans actually did it. Sithara nodded slowly. And now we must decide what we will do. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. On mining worlds where workers had slaved for generations. On agricultural planets where farmers grew food they were not allowed to eat. On factory stations where beings worked themselves to death, building weapons for Council wars. The spark had been lit. Now it was starting to spread. On Earth, Daniel Carter worked day and night. His office was filled with communication devices, each one connected to a different secret contact on a different world. The messages came constantly. Some were simple expressions of support. Others were offers of intelligence, information about Council fleet movements and supply lines. A few were bolder. The Venakai are ready to act, Sithra's message said. We cannot fight openly yet, but we can cause problems. Supply shipments will be delayed. Communication lines will fail at important moments. And when the time comes, we will stand with you. Similar messages came from the Tarathi, the Kelish, the Miniver, and a dozen other species. Not all of them could offer much. Some could only provide information. Others could sabotage a single facility or delay a single shipment. But, together, they formed a network that the Council had never faced before. Nathan Cole brought the intelligence reports to Admiral Morgan's office every day. "The Council is assembling a second fleet," he said, "larger than the first. They are pulling ships from across their territory." "How large?" Kate asked. 500 ships. "Maybe more." Kate nodded grimly. "And what do we have?" "After repairs, 31 ships from our original fleet, plus 12 new vessels that just finished construction." Nathan paused. "And something else." He activated a display showing the space around Earth. Small groups of ships were gathering, approaching from different directions. "These are vessels from allied species. Venakai transport ships armed with weapons we gave them. Tarathi scout craft. Kelish fighters. None of them are powerful alone, but together they add nearly 40 ships to our fleet." Kate stared at the display. "They are risking everything to stand with us." "Yes, because we risked everything first." Captain Jake Morrison was out of the medical bay, though his left arm was still in a healing cast. He stood on the bridge of his new ship, the Resolve, and watched the Allied vessels take their positions. "Strange sight," Lauren Webb said. She had recovered from her injuries faster than Jake and had immediately requested assignment to his new ship. "Never thought I would see Venakai and humans flying together. War makes strange friends," Jake said. "How is the crew?" "Ready. Everyone who survived the Defiance wanted to serve on the Resolve. Plus we have some new volunteers. Seems everyone wants to serve on the ship of the crazy captain who rammed a flagship." Jake smiled slightly. "Let us hope I do not have to do that again." On Nexus Prime, High Arbiter Vorath sat in his private chambers and felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Fear. The reports on his desk painted a picture he did not want to see. Production delays on 6 worlds. Communication failures across 3 sectors. And rumors spreading despite every effort to stop them, of other species considering resistance. Executor Krelvax stood before him, still recovering from his injuries. The massive warrior looked smaller somehow, as if defeat had shrunk him. "We will crush them," Krelvax said. "The second fleet is almost ready. 500 ships against their pathetic force. This time, there will be no survivors." "And what of the other species?" Vorath asked. "What of these reports of sabotage and secret alliances?" "Rumors, nothing more. No one would dare stand against the Council." Vorath looked at him with ancient eyes. "The humans dared, and now others are beginning to wonder if they could dare as well. Do you not see what is happening? This is not just a war against one small species. This is a threat to everything we have built. Then we destroy the humans completely. Burn their worlds. Kill every last one of them. Make an example that no one will ever forget." Vorath considered this. It was the traditional response. It had worked for thousands of years, but something told him that it would not work this time. The humans had already made their point. Even if Earth fell, the memory of their resistance would remain. Other species would remember that the Council could be hurt. The fear that held the Empire together was already cracking. "Launch the fleet," Vorath said finally. "But understand this, Krelvax. If you fail again, there will be no third chance. The Council itself may not survive." Krelvax bowed and left. Vorath remained in his chair, staring at nothing. For 12,000 years, the Council had ruled through fear. They had never needed to earn loyalty. They had never needed to inspire respect. They had simply demanded obedience and punished those who refused. Now a small, young, stubborn species had shown the galaxy that another way was possible. That freedom was worth fighting for. That even the mightiest empire could bleed. Vorath had lived for 3,000 years. He had seen empires rise and fall, and he recognized the signs of what was coming. The humans had not just refused tribute. They started a revolution. And revolutions, once started, were very hard to stop.